podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Humans of Speedway. I'm Ian Brannan, and my guest in this episode is a modern-day proper British Speedway legend. He's the captain of the Ipswich Witches. He's been part of that side going all the way back to 2003. Also currently representing the Redcar Bears, but back-to-back league titles with the Poole Pirates, where he was the captain. He's represented Sheffield and Leicester. 13 team honours throughout the course of his career, and a couple of individual titles as well, not least being British champion in 2016. It's not everybody that can say that they've beaten Bartosz Zmarzlik, passing him from the back in a Grand Prix, but Danny King can.
King and Zmarzlik having a fabulous race out in front. Hancock's out the back, but Danny King, can he hang on? Zmarzlik coming on hard in second place.
So we'll find out what it's like to live your dreams at the Principality Stadium and much more besides, learning all about his career. And before the end, we'll discover what Danny's dream Speedway meeting would look like as well. But first of all, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to Humans of Speedway the current, at the time of recording this, captain of the Ipswich Witches and representing the Redcar Bears in 2023 as well. It's Danny King. Welcome, Danny.
Hey Ian, thanks for having me, mate.
Always a pleasure to speak with you, Danny, and looking forward to chatting about your career and much more besides as well, because there's been all sorts that we can talk about. But we're going to start at the present time, really, start of 2023. You've come out of 2 years with the Poole Pirates, back-to-back league and cup titles, so the double. 2 years on the bounce, takes some doing. Poole, we know, are always a successful side, but tell us about the move and what's all come about there, because sometimes success doesn't help you out in Speedway, does it? That it makes some tricky choices for promoters to have to decide who they can fit in. This time, you're the one that's had to make way. You've headed to Redcar. Redcar have got a fantastic team, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But just talk about Poole first up, and and that tough decision to find pastures new.
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed my time at Poole. I'm not going to lie about that. It was disappointing when I found out I wasn't in the plans for this year. But I've been around long enough. That's the business of Speedway, and the rules obviously changed this year, and it meant that they had to build a different team, a different style team, should I say, as they have done the last few years. So, it was disappointing at the time, but these things happen, and you move on. And I feel very, very lucky the way it's all turned out, and obviously very excited on my new adventure this year at Redcar.
Yeah, and I think this is a brilliant signing by Redcar. Absolutely brilliant signing, and one that Poole may look back on later in the season, because I know what you bring to the team off the track. We know what you bring on it, but I know what you bring off the track. And Redcar is a team of good riders, but a team of captains. And that could be the difference. And I think certainly for Poole fans, it's maybe going to be difficult seeing you in a red set of Kevlars and the blue ones.
Yeah, as I say, it's been a funny one. To be able to ride for the Poole Pirates is a huge thing in anyone's career. Such a big club, and I had great success. I captained them to 2 doubles. So that's something that's going to live on with me forever, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But as you say, it's a different look now. We're in red, and it's a new challenge for me. And I still have the desire to win, and my intentions are still the same. I want success, and that's my plan this year.
And when you look at the lineup that Redcar have got this year, it's very much in that Poole kind of formula, really, with 3 strong heat leaders, yourself, Charles Wright and Eric Riss. Charles Wright has had his shoulder fixed, and we've seen already that he seems to be a stronger competitor this year. Then back up from the likes of Jason Edwards and Daniel Hume, and reserves Connor Bailey and Jake Mulford. So a good mix of top-class experience, but also some of the best upcoming talent as well. And you can see why some of the fans and some of the maybe those involved with Redcar feel that we've got half a chance this year.
Yeah, well, so they say. That they're really happy with the team, and I must admit I am as well. Somehow with the lower points limit, they've managed to keep the very strong top end with three three heat leaders as such, and I think we're very good throughout the rest of the team. We've got good strength in depth and good mixture of youth and experience, and nothing's ever won on paper or before the season starts, but the team that is there is definitely capable. So long season ahead, as we all know. Injuries stay injury free, and take each meeting at a time, and hopefully we'll be there or thereabouts at the end.
And you all got together fairly recently, didn't you? You went out for a pre-season night out a few weeks back. What was nightlife like in Middlesbrough then? And were there Parmos involved?
I'm staying well clear of Parmos. I've tried one once, and I say I tried one. I tried a bite once, and that was enough. So I thoroughly enjoyed my weekend. It's a very new club to me. I don't know much about the guys. I hear good things, and that was cemented this weekend. They're such a great bunch, everyone, they made me feel very welcome, and we all got on very well. We had a great get together with the team, had some fun, and yeah, I'm sort of excited to get going now. I just wish this weather would clear up a little bit so we can actually get on track.
Yeah, I think you speak for all of us when you say that, but hopefully we'll be in business pretty soon. I think you're going to love it at Redcar. It's a friendly place. I think all the things that you had at Poole also apply to Redcar, and also a great racetrack to race on as well. I've never seen a bad meeting at Redcar. I've said that many times. And I think that the way that the track usually is prepared there is going to suit you right down to the ground. There's always a lot of dirt on the outside, and that's exactly like where you like to put your back tyre. But maybe if there's anything, perhaps it's slightly too fair sometimes, because everybody loves racing on it. Yeah,
that's exactly right. The track is fantastic, but when you've got a home track that everyone enjoys coming to, it makes things a lot harder. Certainly for the home team. I've been at tracks before where home advantage is massive, and a lot of riders are beat before the meeting even starts. But that's obviously not the case at Redcar. It's a great track. It's a great racetrack. It's fun to ride. It's fast. It's got everything you want really for a speedway track. So it's a tricky place to go to though as an away rider. I don't think you're just going to turn up and do well. I've been there as an away rider a few times, and the home boys are quick. So you need to make sure the setup's right from the off. And obviously now me being a home rider, hopefully I'll get the setup dialed in pretty quick, and we can make it a bit of a fortress. Obviously, that's the plan.
Your other team, of course, in the Premiership is the Ipswich Witches once again, and a bit of familiarity with the Redcar side. There's a few riders between you that ride in both leagues, so familiar surroundings there. But looking ahead to this season in the Premiership, we've seen some big names coming back, not least one of your teammates, Emil, who has probably been the most talked about signing of the winter. That's going to add a lot of focus to the Witches, both generally across the country, across the world. In fact, I've had people get in touch with me wanting to, have interviews with people at Ipswich off the back of Emil signing. So it seems to be a different place that we're coming from this year, and that with, say, Nicky Pedersen, with Dan Bewley coming back, the Premiership seems to be a hotter prospect across the whole speedway world, let alone Britain.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there, really. And I think the riders coming back to England is massive for obviously the sport in the country, but the sport in general. We've had world class riders throughout the whole forever really, and it sort of died off a bit of recent years. And to have these guys coming back and want to race here is just great, and it's only a bonus. So it's good news for everyone, and for me, obviously, I love the look of the Ipswich team. Doyley is a big part of that now, and riding with him last year, that guy is just an inspiration, and what a great team man he is, as well. He's very level-headed, and he wants to win. And obviously that means that he'll do anything he can to help his teammates. And I enjoyed that last year, and unfortunately didn't quite have the season I wanted, so I struggled to back him up. But this year, obviously, I'm feeling a lot more confident in equipment, and looking forward to starting that. And with the introduction of Emil as well, a guy who's been sort of someone I've looked at too and loved watching over the years. I don't know him overly well, but I'm looking forward to get to know him and welcoming him to the team, and hopefully get him settled in quick and we can hit the ground running.
Yeah, and that's always been the question, but we saw on Monday that he certainly is looking like he's hitting the ground running, and the first win on the board so far for Ipswich away. But his signing, when you look at the other riders you've got in the side, Jason Doyle, Eric Riss, yourself, and now Emil Sayfutinov as well. Obviously there are others, but just that signing adds just that extra little bit of quality across the board, doesn't it? And that backup for Jason Doyle, another world-class rider in the side, and that surely is going to be massive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Obviously, we still need to go on track and perform, but that's why I like the look of the team, the way it's built. We just have a little bit more strength at the top end. And obviously, we've had to make a change at the bottom end, losing Jack, and obviously wish him a speedy recovery. But that's Speedway, sometimes these things happen, but it's still with the way it's turned out, I still like the look of the team. And again, very excited to get on track with these guys and get the ball rolling.
And also the youth too, particularly in the form of Joe Thompson, who I know that it's unfortunate with what's happened so far as Jack Thomas is concerned, and best wishes to him. But for Joe Thompson, he gets this chance now, and he's going to be lining up alongside Emil Sayfutinov in, I think, his second ride each evening as far as it stands at the moment. And then you've got the match coming up at Leicester, where he heads back to the track he's grown up on, and he's going to be racing against his brother in heat number 2. So there's a little bit of extra needle in that one as well.
Yeah, that's going to be fun for him, but it's I'm sure it's something he's not unfamiliar with. He's raced his brother a lot, and they're good lads, they're good riders, and obviously they're going to want to get one over on each other. But I think the fact that one of our early meetings is at Leicester will be good for Joe. Hopefully it will settle his nerves a bit. It's a track he knows very well and a track he rides very well. So hopefully if he can't come into a team with Doyle and Emil and not get excited and lift you to do better, then you're never going to do it. So I think it'll work well for Joe. I think it'll drag him along and help him make that next step.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out for everybody across the course of 2023. Of course, keep up to date with the regular week in, week out reports on the other podcast, which is No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast, which will have all the results and reaction for the matches as we go through this season. Right now, let's get into your career, Danny, because you've represented a number of the great sides of Speedway. Obviously, a long time spent with Ipswich Witches, but a career that's dating back to, well, just after the millennium, in fact, I would say. And how did Speedway come into your life, though? Because obviously your brother was a rider, wasn't he, Jason? And obviously, therefore, it's the natural connection there. But how did Speedway come into the family, if you like, and where were the origins?
So we go back to the grass track days. We both started racing when we were 6, doing the grass track scene, and obviously you can't ride Speedway until you're a little bit older. And back then there wasn't these youth championships and stuff about. So we did the grass track, but I used to love watching the Speedway. I remember sitting up on the Saturday night watching the Grand Prix, and I just wanted to be like Mark Laram. That's all I ever wanted to do. So as soon as I was old enough, I persuaded or asked my dad to let me have a go at Speedway, and he got me a bike. And to be honest, that's the rest is history, really. I mean, my brother, he loved grass track as well as Speedway. I was more of just wanted to do the Speedway route, and as soon as I could, I stopped the grass and just concentrated on Speedway. It was what I wanted to do, and it was where I see my future. So basically, come from the grass track scene and just worked hard as a youngster to try and make it at Speedway.
Grass track's like a classic way in, and there's obviously a lot of motocrossers coming across now or having a go at it over the time. But I think certainly of an era, like when you say look back at like the likes of Mark Laram or Gary Havelock or Jeremy Doncaster or Kelvin Tatum, these names of, say, the 80s and early 90s, that was the way to get into Speedway, wasn't it? It was all about the grass track first, and then discovering the luxury of Speedway, and it's not quite so bumpy.
True. It just seemed a natural progression. It's the closest to Speedway you're going to get in motorsport. As you say, there's a lot of motocrossers coming across now, and but still, they turn into great Speedway riders. But it's very different to motocross, where the grass track, it's a similar aspect. It's just slightly different bikes and on a smoother track, as you say. So, it's sad, really. When I was growing up, the grass track scene was huge. There would be hundreds and hundreds of riders in each class, and it was just so busy. But it's sort of dwindled out a bit over the years, which is really sad to see. And it would be nice to see a bit more of a revival in the sport. It's a great sport, and obviously put me in good stead for my career.
When you started riding then, your early days, you were involved with, well, a few sides, I think, over the first few years, weren't you? Peterborough, Swindon, Arena Essex and Reading, Mildenhall. These are all sort of clubs that you would be found out in the early days, weren't they?
Yeah, so the first Speedway started at Iwade in Kent. It was close to home, and Graham Arnold there, he's a fantastic guy, and he would always let us go out there and practice, and that's where the Speedway really started for me and my brother. And then I did the little brother thing, Jay was older, he got into a team first, went to Peterborough, so I naturally went along and did the second halves, and it's pretty much the same for Arena Essex and Swindon and everywhere else. Jay was riding in them teams, and I just kept going along and doing the practice, and that's how it sort of come about really for them teams.
It's certainly a handy way of doing it. Speedway, perhaps one of the big problems with it is that it is so hard to get into. You have to know somebody who is on the inside, who knows how the bikes work, who knows what to do with the bike and all that kind of stuff. It's not like you can just go to the shop and buy a motocross bike like we've talked about before, but obviously your brother being involved, that was the perfect way in really for you, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a shame really, because it's such a great sport, and it's like you just said, a motocross, you can go and buy a bike tomorrow, and there's hundreds of tracks around the country you can just turn up and ride on. And Speedway, we don't have that luxury. There's probably only 2 or 3 tracks in the country that you can actually practice on, let alone just turn up and ride. And it's a tricky one. You do need a bit of help and a bit of guidance, and it's not easy. So I think the best thing you can do is go to the practice days and try and get in with someone who can give you a bit of guidance and help you get noticed.
There's a lot of work getting to this point, but you finally get your big shot, lining up in a competitive race for the first time, coming down to the tapes, and here it is. You're a Speedway rider. Can you remember your first heat and how it went? Yeah,
so it was 2001. I would have turned 15 in the August. So I was doing like I said, my brother was in the Pumas team. I'd go up every week and practice after the meeting, and I was doing quite well. There was a few of us used to go do second half races, and we was always racing. And when I turned 15, they gave me an opportunity. A couple of us actually gave us the opportunity and put us in the team, and I never looked back. It was just it was everything I'd ever dreamed of. I wanted to be a spear rider, and I've finally done it. And I loved every second of it. It was a good learning experience. Obviously, a very proud moment for me to be racing as well alongside my big brother. I looked up to him a lot, and it was enjoyable days. And obviously, the following year, 2002, I stayed with Peterborough, and that was my first full season. And we won the league that year as well, actually.
Wow, so a bit of an early success, but Peterborough have long been a side that have stood by youngsters and helping them make their way in the sport, and particularly when you look back to the Thundercats era as well, with the likes of Simon Stead and Ollie Allen, and I know there were a number of others as well, but that was a top young side, wasn't it? And Peter Oakes was behind that, and that delivered a lot of talent to the sport. Yeah, definitely. They've had some great riders through there. David Howe, I believe, is another one. It's fantastic that they were doing that back then, and they kept the youth side going. I think it's got a little bit more trickier these days, but you've had some good riders come out of Peterborough for sure. Ipswich then is a team that sort of has run through your career. You've had a few spells, but more often than not, I think throughout most of your career you've been there, bar a few years, in some form or another. So when did the Ipswich love affair begin? How did that come about? Because obviously you must enjoy riding there, because you've been there since 2003 in some form or another. Yeah, I generally feel I owe everything to Ipswich for my career. How it turned out. They gave me the opportunity and steered me in the right direction. And basically, it all started back in the British League Cup. I think I was just guesting for Reading a lot, a bit for Lakeside or Arena Essex at the time. And they did an interleague thing called the British League Cup, where they weakened the top league and they raced against a team in the middle league. And Ipswich put me in it, and I did really well. I did very well for them. And the following year, I was due to go to Reading
my first full season in the Premier League, the Championship now. And in the February, I got a phone call to say that something had happened in the team. They had to make team changes, and unfortunately, they couldn't fit me in. So I was just doing National League, and I didn't have a team. And then I got a phone call from Ipswich and said that I impressed them the year before, and they needed a 3-point rider at reserve. Do I want to come and do the Elite League? So obviously I said no. I'm 16 years old. Why would I want to do that? And they persuaded me and said, look, we'll look after you. Just give it a go. If it don't work out, there's no hard feelings. We've got no pressure on you. Come along. And that was the best decision I ever made in my life in terms of Speedway.
At number 6, young Daniel King dumps, as he is known. He'll be wanting to put on a good performance here this evening.
I don't know if I've told this story before, but I remember turning up on press day with my bikes, and you had Chris Louis, Hans Anderson, Scott Nichols, all these top guys, and they just walked over to my bike and they were just unbolting bits and lobbing them across the pits. And that's no good. You can't use that. How old's this? And it was just straight out of a comedy scene. And obviously they helped me out get the bikes where they need to be. And that year I made such big strides in the sport. It was unreal. And as I say, that really put me in good stead to push on in the rest of my career, Daniel
King still leads away. Scotty Nichols is doing a tremendous job in second place. Johnson, I don't think he's going to be able to get to these two riders now. It's going to be a fantastic 5-1 in heat number 7. It's a bring the house down as Daniel King, he takes the win. Scotty Nichols finishes second. Third place goes to Steve Johnson. And that was quite tremendous team riding by Scotty Nichols. Daniel King, just listen to the applause for the pair of these riders.
It was a gamble going in the Elite League at 16, but it was the best gamble I ever took. And for that reason is why my heart is so close to Ipswich, and they've looked after me for years. And all I ever want to do is win a title with Ipswich, and I keep trying, and I'm trying my hardest, and I've still got as much desire now to do it for the club as I ever have. And hopefully this year will be the year.
And that's an interesting point as well, because I think sometimes, and we're seeing it now at the time of recording this, riders who are getting left out of sides, inevitably they will get their chance somewhere in this season, because we know how Speedway works. Injuries will come along or changes will come along elsewhere, things will move. And it just shows, doesn't it, that actually, fate sometimes maybe leads you to a certain place, and that's what happened with you, really. It didn't seem like it was the ideal situation, but then out of nowhere things can change pretty quickly in this sport.
Exactly that. That's what I said earlier about the Poole situation. It's the business of Speedway, and things happen, as you just said, and there's no point overthinking things. Just go with it, enjoy the ride, and look, I'm a simple rider, or a simple guy, some might say, but I go out and I give 100% wherever I go. You're never going to tell me I'm not trying. Even if I'm not scoring great, I'm giving 100%. And if I'm not scoring great, it's either an off day or I've got a bit of a problem with something. But I enjoy what I do, and I give 100%. That's all I know how to do. And that's what I just try and keep things very simple in Speedway. I don't overthink things. I go out there, I ride my bike, and I try and win for my club and myself. And that's how I've sort of lived my career, and I'll continue to do so.
And you mentioned there, it is interesting about the help that the more senior riders you mentioned there, like Scott Nichols, Hans Anderson, all probably Grand Prix riders or about to be Grand Prix riders around that era. Hugely experienced figures, and they're taking a look at your bike and they're pulling things off it, and obviously that. You realise then that there's a significant difference between that all bikes are maybe not equal. There's a way of doing stuff to make you be able to race at that level.
Yeah, I mean, certainly coming from the Conference League, it's National League now, going up to that level, at the bottom level, there's no money in the sport. It's costing you money. So if something breaks, you try and fix it just to keep the bike running. But obviously when you take that step up, that's not quite the case. So and it just goes to show you again, it's a team sport, and that's what it's about. That they could see that I was young and didn't have much experience, and again, it was all of that helped me make that next step. They taught me what I needed to know, not just on track, off track. Obviously, I'm preparing the bikes and how things need to be done and the standard they need to be at.
And so, as your career has gone through, now you are one of the more senior riders. You've got Joe Thompson coming into the side at Ipswich, and he's sort of similar position as to where you were now. He's obviously maybe slightly more experienced, but it's a new atmosphere for him, a new team, and so now you are one of those guys who's helping these youngsters out. And I know that you are hugely influential in the pits. You are team captain, but you're a team captain for a reason, and that's because you have this knack of galvanising people together. I know Adam Roynan was talking about it, that you do keep the team together and on track. And so what would you say are the things that now that you've learnt from them that you put into your own captaincy these days?
Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head there. I take everything from what them boys at Ipswich did to me, and I make sure that I do the same to whatever team I'm in. And I said something very similar on press day at Redcar last week. If anyone's got a problem, then you need to let me know, because I'll lend you an engine, or I'll lend you a bike, or I'll do whatever I can, because if you're only as strong as your weakest link, and if you're not willing to help everyone in your team and someone's struggling, the team's going to struggle. So for me, that's a big thing, being a unit. It's important that everyone gets along and everyone works together as a team. And the other thing is I like to try and keep people calm. I'm a bit of a joker. I just find it's the best way to relax people. I've been in situations before myself, and I've seen it a lot in Speedway where, let's just say we're going to a track a rider's not too keen on. They sit there all day thinking about it. And by the time they've got to the track, they've already talked themselves out of the meeting. I don't like this track. Last time I was there, I crashed twice, whatever it may be. And that's no good. You're in a wrong frame of mind from the off. So my attitude is let's have some fun, and I try and keep it really light and make people smile. And I think if you're making people smile and people are relaxed, you're going to get the best out of them. And then obviously when it comes to our track walk, that's when it's game time, and that's when we get serious and we look at the track and we work out what we're going to do for the meeting. And it's put me in good stead so far in my career. I think it works. A relaxed team and a happy team is a winning team in my eyes.
Yeah, I think, and that is evident. I think certainly whenever I've seen you in the pits or any of your teams that you've been involved with, whether that's Ipswich or whether that's Poole recently, and I'm sure it'll be the same for Redcar. And you're full of captains in the Redcar team. I think that's another bonus, isn't it? But I know that, and this is the kind of thing that maybe people don't realise, is that how much you do help people out. And you mentioned there about lending people engines or bits for bikes or whatever they need. And I've had numerous riders say, Danny lent me this, or Danny's lent me that, or Danny's helped me out. And, that's the kind of thing that probably goes a little bit under the radar, but, that's all part of, I guess, being a captain, but also being a rider that youngsters look up to.
Yeah, I like to think so. It doesn't bother me that it goes under the radar. In fact, I quite like it. I do it because I want to do it, not because I want people to know I've done it. And for me, as I say, winning is the goal. That's why we're here. We're here to win. We're not just here to make up the numbers or just to ride round. So I give everything to wherever I ride. As I said to you earlier, I give 100%, whether that be on the track, in the pits, helping my teammates. If I can do it, I will. And it's as simple as that, because at the end of the day, it's a hard sport. It's a dangerous sport. We're not in it for a long time. And I want to have as much success as I can. And that's what I say. I'll always give you 100%.
Danny King, my guest on this episode of Humans of Speedway, and next we'll turn the focus on some of Danny's big achievements, not least becoming the British champion in 2016 and having the chance to ride at Cardiff in the British Grand Prix, and he won a race. I was there, it was an electric atmosphere, and to do it, he had to beat Greg Hancock and Bartosz Zmarzlik, so certainly did it the hard way. Talking about that experience in the next part of Humans of Speedway. Welcome back to Humans of Speedway. I'm Ian Brannan. If you're looking for some further listening, well, there's loads of other previous episodes for you to check out. So have a scroll back through this feed, and for other Speedway podcasts through the course of the season, the official British Speedway podcast, No Brakes, No Fear, is back and will be out every Wednesday for your weekly dose of what's happening across British Speedway with some top guests and exclusive interviews. The most recent episodes include a chat with Phil Morris, the newly appointed CEO of British Speedway's Premiership, and we also spoke with Dan Gilks in the most recent episode at the time of recording this as well. So check those out. And on top of that, we've got the Tatum Talks podcast, myself and Kelvin Tatum, and basically having a look at what's going on in the Premiership, but also in the Grand Prix as well. The Premiership preview is out now. That is available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. Search Tatum Talks for Kelvin Tatum's Premiership previews, and there'll be a Grand Prix preview coming out throughout some point in April as well, mid-April time with Kelvin. Well, we're about to hear from Kelvin in a few moments because we're talking about some big achievements for Danny King, my guest on this episode of Humans of Speedway, because he rode in the British Grand Prix in 2016 and it was quite explosive in parts. But Danny, you had that experience that Tom Brennan and Leon Flint had this last year, where you were a track reserve in 2007. And for those who are not sure, 2007 was the year that Chris Harris won the British Grand Prix. So what an experience that must have been for a younger you to even just be in the pits there and watching everything that was going on.
You do. To be a reserve at any Grand Prix is a huge achievement. But to do it at Cardiff, we're very fortunate. And, it's easy to say, but you never, ever forget the noise in that stadium from down on the track. Even just doing the parade, the noise is immense. And when you're there, if that doesn't lift you up, nothing will. And I enjoyed every minute of it. I didn't get a ride, but it was just so fun to be there and experience it. And obviously, I was very fortunate enough a few years later to actually be involved more in the meeting.
Well, yeah, you were the wild card in 2016, and that's because you won the British title, and we'll talk about that separately in a couple of moments. While on the subject of Grand Prix, let's talk about being a wild card at Cardiff, because it is the thing that Speedway riders dream of, isn't it? That you come out in this massive stadium, huge amount of noise, you go out there and even race, but for you, you won a race as well, and it wasn't easy competition. It was just Bartosz Zmarzlik and Greg Hancock involved, I think, in the heat, and you did it. And what an experience.
Yeah, I went there with the intention of just enjoying the meeting, but obviously just to mix it up and just throw it about a bit. Nothing to lose, and I don't know why, because I never do it, but I think I put too much pressure on myself. And I started with two lasts, and I remember Richie Hawkins at the time. He's my good mate, and he's helped me out a lot over the years. And he was with me, and he just gave me a few choice words and said, basically sort yourself out. This is the biggest stage ever. You can do it. Go and compete. And so I relaxed after that, two lasts, and I went out and had 2 seconds, and then ended with a win and missed the semi by 1 point, I believe. So
Bartosz Zmarzlik off the inside here. Matty Zagar needs points here. He's on 7. Danny King goes off gate 3 and wide. I think he's acquitted himself pretty well after a tough start tonight. And Greg Hancock goes off the outside in yellows. It
was unbelievable, and to win my last race at Cardiff was just unreal, and it's something I'll never ever forget. The noise in that stadium, because it's so crazy when you've got the helmet on and you're concentrating, you can't hear a thing. It's you're just in the zone.
Here we go, heat number 19. Zmarzlik's made a good gate there. Now can Zagar move the switch up the inside? What can Hancock do? He's at the back at the moment. Danny King comes through into second. Danny King is going wide, and he loves doing that. Danny King comes through to the lead. What a ride from the British wildcard! That's what he's all about, Danny King. Battle with the man in red here, Bartosz Zmarzlik. This would be a moment that Danny King will remember for the rest of his life. Zmarzlik second, and Zagar has come through into third, ahead of Greg Hancock.
Well, it's a bit like buses, isn't it? Yeah. You have to wait all day to see one, and then suddenly two come along at the same time. But I may have given the commentators curse. King and Zmarzlik having a fabulous race out in front. Hancock's out the back, but Danny King, can he hang on? Zmarzlik coming on hard in second place.
It wasn't until after I went over the finish line that the noise started to come in, and it was just so loud. And the crowd just, they're so great to the homeboys, and the reception I got was unreal.
He's won a race in Cardiff. He's won a race as the wild card. Look what it means to him. He's celebrating like he's won the British title again. Well done, Danny King. The Principality Stadium salutes you.
What a ride it was as well. He had to fight for that tooth and nail right to the checkered flag.
I will never ever forget that win at Cardiff, and who knows? Hopefully we'll get to do it again one day.
And from speaking to other riders who have been to Cardiff and had any form of success, whether that's winning a heat, winning the event, or even just being a track reserve and having that experience of riding against some top opposition in front of a big crowd at Cardiff, they all say the same thing, that it is just everything you hope it would be and more, and that feeling and that excitement can never be taken away from you, and it fires you up to do it again, because you want that again. That's what it's all about. That's what you're fighting for week in, week out, year in, year out through your career. Absolutely.
It's you just can't explain the feeling until it happens, and you just don't know, and it's a mad rush. It's just a crazy moment, and you need to make the most of it. And as I say, I feel very fortunate I was able to get that win. I so desperately wanted to win that night, and to get it, and in the last ride it just all fell together nicely, and I learnt a lot. That's the other thing. I started with them two last, but we learnt from it, and you'd like to think if you were there on a more regular basis, you would continue to do that and continue to compete more and more, but it's very difficult to get into the Grand Prix, as we know, so you just got to take it as they come, and if it ever happens again, I'll be ready.
Absolutely, I know you will. And to get there, you won the British title, of course, at Bellevue, and it was a night where the track was changing through the evening. I think it was quite wet, wasn't it, towards the end, and it really sort of played into your favour, and you liked getting round those boards, and the final came and you blasted your way to victory. Yeah, definitely.
The British final for me over the years has been tough. It was at Wolverhampton for a long time, and it's no secret I'm not the greatest lover of Wolverhampton. I do struggle on the smaller tracks, not so much these days, but certainly did back then. And I managed to get on the rostrum one year at Wolves, and I just remember thinking it was great. And then there was rumours of the Bellevue was coming, and it all seemed to unfold, and the stadium opened, and then we were told that year the British final was moving to Bellevue, and I was thinking, game on, this is a bit of me now. Now I can really go and show what I'm about, because it's a track that suits my style. I like the big tracks, I like the dirt, and it all just fell into place nicely. The meeting started well. The rain started to come down. The dirt line was getting heavier, which everyone knows suits me, because I thrive in the dirt. I love riding the dirt, and it's not an easy thing to do, but the weather just got worse and worse and worse, and the dirt line got deeper and deeper and deeper. And I just remember thinking to myself, once I got into the final, I'm hitting that dirt line and I'm not moving off it, because I firmly believe it. I'm probably one of the only ones who could stay in that dirt line for 4 laps. And that's what I did. I made a beeline for it in the first bend. The video's quite funny. Everyone else turns left in the first corner. It looks like I'm going right out of screen. But I knew I needed to hit the dirt line early, and I did, and stayed in it for 4 laps.
Cook on the inside, King on gate 2, Lambert on gate 3, and Worrell off the outside. Restart of the final. Second time of asking. This time they're away, and this time Cook has to start over King. Lambert in third place. Worrell has come to the inside. King has got really wide. Loads of speed about Danny King. Cook has the advantage, but King building up speed round the outside. Danny King round the outside, round turns 3 and 4, all or nothing. Danny King round the boards. Danny King's got round everyone. Danny King has the advantage. Sensational first lap by Danny King. Can he hold it round turns 1 and 2? Yes, he can. King has the advantage. Cook in second place. Lambert in third. Worrell at the back, and 2 laps to go with Danny King to ride that dirt line. Ride the berm. Craig Cook in second place. Third is Lambert. And the back is Worrell. King is well done this one. He had a miserable start to the season, but he's really struck back in the last month or so, and that was a sensational first lap move by Danny King, who is so far out in front he can actually drop back here, because Cook has given up on it. Cook will be second for a third straight season as long as King gets round safely. The Ipswich captain in the Premier League, the Coventry heat leader in the Elite League, is on the back straight for the final time. He's miles out in front. He is round turns 3 and 4. It's Danny King's night at Bellevue. Danny King, British champion. Second place, Craig Cook. Third place, Robert Lambert. Richie Worrell at the back. Danny King is the 2016 British champion.
Again, an amazing achievement. Every lad dreams of being British champion when they start out in the sport, and to be able to do it was great. And obviously, I've had a couple of close ones since. I managed to get a second after my injury on my arm a few years later, and I obviously made the final this year, even though I wasn't 100%. So yeah, I still feel I've got the chance if I'm on form and things are going good. I still feel I can get another one. So bring it on.
Yeah, and of course it will be back at Bellevue in 2023. So you must have a few aims looking down, the course of this season ahead, and a British Championship then firmly one of those.
Yeah, always. As I say, I don't think you have a lot of opportunity to be British champion. You need to be on top of your game, and you need to be, it needs all to fall in place on the night, obviously. But I still feel that I'm there and I can still compete at the highest level. And while I'm feeling like that, this is the time I need to be pushing for the British title again. So I'll be having another go this year, and hopefully, as I say, hopefully I can do it again.
Some of the other things that you've been involved in, you've ridden for a number of other clubs, but Coventry being one that you spent some time at, and I suppose it was sort of towards the back end of Coventry's existence, and unfortunately you were around there as well. I mean, that is a side that we hope to see back at some point. But just a word for the Coventry fans there, because that work is still obviously ongoing to try and save Speedway at Brandon. And as we stand at the moment, the stadium is still there, looking in a bit of a sorry state. But while it's still there, there's still hope.
Absolutely. The guys behind the scenes there, Jeff Davis and David Rowe, all the other people involved, what a job they're doing. And it just goes to show what it means to the people of the sport and of the area. I was very fortunate, again, as I say, to ride for Coventry. It's another big club, and I've been fortunate to ride for a lot of big clubs in my career, and some people never get the opportunity to. So, again, that's a massive thing on my resume that I can say I did, and I had some good years there. I was British champion that year, to ride for these clubs and experience it is amazing. And all I do is just wish that they can get it back. As you say, the stadium's still there. Obviously, there's work to be done, but it's doable. And I know these guys aren't going to give up, and they have my full support.
There's a few sides, unfortunately, that you've ridden for that aren't there anymore. Newcastle being one, Lakeside, another. It is sad when these tracks disappear, isn't it? I mean, I know we've got new tracks coming back, like Workington coming back in, which everybody seems excited to ride, even though it's just in the National League at this moment. I think everybody wants a National League spot just for a day, just to give it a bash. These are great names of Speedway, and particularly like Newcastle. They've been around for almost 100 years, and then from to fold last season, a huge shame.
It is. It's a very sad time at the moment with regard to clubs closing. Unfortunately, I think we're getting more closed in recent years than opening. But you have to take your hat off to the guys at Workington. It looks fantastic, and they haven't cut any corners, and you can see what they're doing. They're doing it properly, and it's a massive boost for the sport. But as you say, it's a bit sad around certainly my sort of area now, and the Rye House gone, and Lakeside gone, and Eastbourne currently gone. Obviously Kent, I know they're running this year at Highway, but that the other track at Central Park gone, and there's just so many clubs that seem to be closing, and it's very, very sad. It was thriving for Speedway in this area at one point, and you can only hope that that something will happen and they'll find some new land or whatever it may be, and we can get some clubs back in the area, because it's not good for Speedway, and it's surely missed.
Absolutely, would love to see more back. Of course we would, and I know plenty of people are working on a number of things to try and help with that. Let's just talk about some of your national appearances as well. You've represented your country, Great Britain, when you were British champion. You were part of the Speedway World Cup squad as well in 2016, which was obviously a big event, and Great Britain that year had its best success for a long time in that tournament as well.
It was, yeah. First medal for many, many years. And again, it was another great meeting for me. I started bad, a touch of tapes in my first one, was very angry, but we kept calm, and we clawed it back. And I have to say that Ty was fantastic that night. He scored an absolute hatful. And it came down to the end, and we had a chance of winning a medal. And I remember I went out and won my last ride again there, and it was actually heat 19, the same heat as the one at Cardiff. So it was quite a funny thing, really. But and then I think that meant, because I won that, Ty had to go out and not come last, and we got silver, and I think he did it. And looking back, 2016 for me was a great year. It was the British final, Cardiff, and a silver medal for Team GB. Very proud year for me.
And looking at this year, 2023, the Speedway World Cup is back, of course, and that means perhaps some more opportunities for riders outside the obvious three, the three Grand Prix riders who possibly, pick themselves, you would argue. But you don't know what's going to happen in Speedway. We don't know that they're going to be able to take part. Things could happen. We don't know. And so for the other British riders, surely as well, it is something that's maybe in the back of your mind that with a good showing in the first half of the season and put yourself in the reckoning potentially for the World Cup if the opportunity does come up. I suppose you've got to put yourself in the frame. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of riders probably overthink it a bit too much. For me, as I say, I keep things very simple. I try and do my talking on track. And if I'm sat here now wanting to be in the a World Cup squad or a Team GB squad, I need to go and perform on track first. There's no point phoning up and hounding or whatever it is. Go on track, do the business. Show the scores, and then I believe that if that happens and you're riding well, you'll get a call if needed. So that's the way I've always looked at it, and I've been fortunate enough to be in Team GB for quite a few times. So as I say, it's early season, but my plan is, as always, to hit the ground running, pile in the scores, and get noticed. Yeah, it's all there to be got. Watch this space. Danny King, my guest on this episode of Humans of Speedway. Well, in the final parts, we're going to have a look at Danny's dream Speedway meeting. Who'd make his all-time 1-7? What's the ideal track and the ideal stadium? And much more besides in the next parts of Humans of Speedway. Welcome back to Humans of Speedway. Danny King, my guest, and a hugely experienced and respected rider with some great accolades to his name. British Championships, represented his country, captain of the Ipswich Witches, and of course representing the Redcar Bears in 2023. But how is he at being a promoter of a meeting? If he was designing his dream Speedway meeting with no problems with the weather or rider availability or anything like that, or indeed any form of reality, then what would he choose? So we're asking dream track, dream stadium, dream 1-7, referee, change a rule. Who'd be your opposition? That's the premise of it. So let's crack on, Danny, and talk about your dream track. So you're a racer. You like getting your wheel in the dirt, but which track would you choose as your favourite of all? Pretty easy one for me, Ian. It's Bellevue all day long. I think it's probably one of the best tracks, if not the best track in Europe. It's the thought that went into that track was just unreal, and you have to take your hat off to everyone involved. It's a pure racing track. A lot of tracks in this country, you miss the start, you might get third, you do well to get second. If you win it, you've done very well. At Bellevue, if you miss the start, you can still quite easily win the race over 4 laps. The lines you can pull, the size of the track, the speed you can carry. For me, it's just a perfect speedway track, and it's you can make a gate at Bellevue and be nervous because you don't know where they can come from. It's hard to cover a big track, and if you're not quite fast enough, it's difficult. It's just great, and I love racing at Bellevue, and obviously won my British title there. Won a silver medal with Team GB there. So for me, that's quite an easy answer. It's Bellevue. You've ridden on some of the big tracks in Europe, though, some that maybe people would single out as being great tracks as well, Wrocław or Torun or any of those kind of places. What is it that sets Bellevue apart over those kind of tracks, would you say? Yeah, I just think he did his homework. They've gone to Europe and they've looked at the best tracks in Europe, and I think they've tried to take a bit of everything from that. And I think what makes Bellevue also a bit special is the banking that's on the place, because a lot of tracks in Europe can be flat, which can be difficult. But when you've got banking on a track, it just creates so many more racing lines. So I think it's just a mixture of everything that makes it so great for me. If there is a drawback to Bellevue, and it is the thing that's probably standing in its way for hosting a Grand Prix or whatever, it is the fact that the capacity is not quite as vast as certainly the owners of the Grand Prix would like. So if you're going to transport this track into somewhere that would, get you 12,000 in and get you a Grand Prix or more, where would you put it? Again, that's another easy one for me, but I wouldn't want to change the size of the track, so we'd have to try and make the stadium a bit bigger, but we'd have to drop it into Cardiff, wouldn't we? Jeez, that would be the dream, wouldn't it? The Bellevue track in Cardiff, and then nobody would have a complaint then, and it'd have a roof on, so it wouldn't rain. Exactly, win-win. All right, cool stuff. So Bellevue track in Cardiff, everyone's a winner. Okay, next one then, it's the big one. Your all-time 1-7. You're building a dream team. Who are you picking? I mean, you can pick yourself. No, I'm not going to pick myself. Well, I'm not that silly. So 2 riders
I've always looked up to. One since I was a kid, and the other one since I got more involved with Speedway. But the first one, the name is, as I mentioned earlier, he's my absolute hero, and I managed to ride with him at Ipswich for a year as well. And I actually rode with him because he was 5, I was 6, and it's still strange, when you meet your heroes. I still get a bit giddy around him now. But Mark Loram, for me, he is the ultimate, and I based my whole riding style and everything on that guy. Lovely bloke. Been fortunate enough to know him, and for me, Mark Loram's going to be the first one on the team sheet.
Of course, a world champion. He won the world championship without winning a GP round. That's the thing, isn't it? But hey, it doesn't matter how you get there; it's about getting there.
Exactly that. So Mark's the first one, and the other guy I mentioned there, who I've always looked up to, and he's still one of my all-time heroes, Greg Hancock. I just love the guy's attitude. I love the way he races. I love the way he carries himself. Again, he's the next name on my list.
Mark Loram and Greg Hancock, who of course you beat at Cardiff. So that's your first two. It's a strong start. Who's next?
Third one is going to be Michael Lee. I met Michael when I was younger. I moved out from home and quite a way away when I was 17, and I met Michael, and he sort of took me under his wing a bit, really. He looked after my engines and just helped me out in everything in terms of Speedway, contracts and things like that, because I was new to the game. I didn't know much, and I relied on him a lot, and he was such a great guy for me. He's a lovely bloke. I know he's got a great history in the sport, and if you want to read his book, that's a fun read. But all in all, he really pushed me on and helped me out in my career. And obviously, what a fantastic talent he was when he rode as well. So Michael's definitely on the list.
Cool. Michael Lee then to the list. Not many. I'm surprised that not many people have actually mentioned him in the past, but he is a British legend of his era as well, isn't he? And I think I don't know why, but he doesn't get mentioned as much as you'd think. Okay, number 4.
Number 4, I'm going to go with Hans Andersen, because when I first started that year at Ipswich, what we spoke about, Hans was the up-and-comer in the team. He just got in the Grand Prix, I believe, and he really took me under his wing. He helped me out a lot, and he even took me to a Grand Prix so I could go and experience it as a young 16-year-old, and it was just so cool to be in the pits. I've never done that before. Got an all areas pass and was mingling with all these like superstars of the sport who I looked up to. And it was just nice of him to do that. And I won the British Under-18 Championship of Wolverhampton that year as well. And I'll never forget it now that Hans just turned up in the pits before the meeting, and he actually got a train from Peterborough there because he couldn't get there, just to be there and surprise me and support me in the meeting. So, I have a lot of respect for Hans. He did a lot for me in my early career. So again, he's on the list.
Yeah, Hans Andersen has given a lot of support and service to British Speedway over his career, and I know not just in the racing, like you say, he's been a hugely supportive character to have around the teams. When I think of Hans Andersen, I just think of a massive Mercedes. I saw him driving this really posh car in Cardiff once when he was in the Grand Prix, and looked like he was living the dream. Okay, so next rider in your team then, Danny?
Next, I'm going to go with my boss, Chris Louis.
Yeah, I think good choice.
Again, I touched base on it earlier. Chris has been a massive part of my career, and he's not just my boss; he's also my friend, and he's always steered me in the right direction. He's that guy I can go to if I need an answer on something, even if I don't want to hear what he's got to say. I need to hear it, and he's that guy who'll tell me straight. And he's been another huge part of my career, and still is to this day. So, and again, what a fantastic rider! I know he had a nasty injury, which probably stopped his career a bit short. I know he made his comeback, but he was really on form when it happened, and a top rider and a top bloke.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got an episode with Chris Louis, one of the earlier ones on this, if you want to find out more about Chris's career. And He was part of the legendary Ipswich '98 team as well, and how many times that, maybe you're going to mention that, I don't know, but the Ipswich '98 team was, well, he was, that's when Scott Nicholls just began. What a year to sort of start, but maybe we'll talk about that in a moment if you're going to mention that. I'm not sure, but it was, quite something to be part of. Okay, so Chris Louis is on the list, and, well, got a couple left, I think.
Yeah, 2 more. So, again, it's probably a lot of people say these last 2, but the first one I'm going to go with is Tony Ricardson. Growing up, watching Speedway as a youngster, the guy was just dominating the sport. He always seemed like he was ahead of his time with everything, his equipment and his motorhome. And, you just look at it from an outsider's point of view and just think this guy's got it right. And what a phenomenal rider he was, 6-time world champion. Again, someone else you look up to as a youngster, obviously wanted to aspire to be. So, he was an easy choice for the list.
Yeah, another solid witch from the past as well. I mean, what a side they had back then, and now involved in with the FIM and the Grand Prix and really focusing on that youth element. Is it the GP4 where they're inventing that new bike for youngsters to come in on as well? He's heavily involved in that, isn't he?
He is, yeah. It's good to get these guys back involved. I think it's great. They've been there and done it. And if you want to push the sport on, I'm sure these are the people you need with you to help guide you. And it's good to see Tony back involved.
So Tony Ricardson makes the list. I think we've just got one space left. So who's taking your final spot in your dream team?
That's right. And it's going to go to the guy who was another phenomenal rider, but was just unfortunately around the same era. And that's Jason Crump. The guy was unreal to be. I think he holds a stat as it being in the top 2 or 3 for over 10 years. And it just, unfortunately, he was around with Tony because I think he'd have had many more world titles. But the fact that he still went out and done it and had that consistency for so long, it's unreal. So, and obviously I got to ride with Jason and got to know Jason a bit better last year as well, a year before with Ipswich. And he's become a good guy and someone that I enjoy spending time with. And I've actually, even though he's been retired and he's been out of sport a long time, you can learn so much off him. And I certainly have and certainly continue to do so.
Well, that's a pretty strong side, you have to say. A few world champions in among there as well. And what an awesome lineup that would be to see. So, next question, Danny, is who'd be refereeing your meeting? Who are you going to be entrusting on the buttons in the referee's box? Do you have a particular person in mind?
The referee one's tricky for me. Two come to mind. It's hard to pick between the two, but I'll say both. Tony Steele, obviously. I think Tony's been around a long time, and he was the main man growing up, watching him on the telly do the Grand Prix, and obviously got to know Tony over the years, working with him in the sport. And another guy that comes to mind is the guy who's sort of doing the same thing, but a bit more now, is Craig Ackroyd. Again, someone who I get on quite well with, and it's nice to see doing the Grand Prix scene and that. So it's a mix-up between them two, really. It's hard to pick one.
Two popular choices, I think, and certainly Tony Steele, riders certainly of a certain era have all gone for him. But Craig Ackroyd, of course, is one of the only, it's just him and Christina, I think, that do the FIM meetings for the Grand Prix. And I can tell you that Craig Ackroyd was picked by Steve Worrell, and Craig Ackroyd is refereeing Steve's testimonial, I believe. So he could request who he wanted. So he's actually
good job you picked him then.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, that's going to have to happen another date now, of course. Anyway, but anyway, the next question for you is sort of knocking on from the referee thing, really. If you're going to introduce a rule, change a rule, tweak the way a meeting worked in some way for your one-off dream meeting, what would be the first thing that you would change about Speedway from your point of view?
The thing that bugs me the most, and it's the most simple rule in the world of Speedway, and I'm sure you've had it many times on here, it would be the 2-minute clock. It's for a rider, it is the easiest thing to understand in the world. If that clock hits 0 and you are not at the tapes, you're out of the race. I don't know why in England we don't enforce it enough. Some tracks do have it, but we have this rule where if you're on the way to the start and it's at 0, you're still in the race. And it just seems really silly to me. I just think the world of Speedway understands the 2-minute clock, and I think everyone should run with it. Everyone should use it. And it is what it is. If you're running late and you ain't got time to do your start, you ain't got time to do your start. Let's stick with it. I think it would make things run more smoothly. And I think you'll probably agree that people who do use it and stick to it, the meetings are better. So that's my bug in Speedway, and that's what I would want to see at every track.
Well, I know that speaking to Phil Morris on the British Speedway podcast just a couple of weeks back, we talked about this very topic, and it's definitely a possibility in the future. How soon is to be decided, but I think you may well get your hope. Yeah,
I think it's great that Phil's come involved. I have a lot of respect for Phil, and we're actually quite good friends. I rode alongside him at Reading years ago, and he was my team manager at Birmingham for a year as well. So we've remained friends, and I think he does a great job for the Grand Prix, and I think he's going to do an even better job now. He's more involved, and hopefully the 2-minute clock will be one thing he does see for.
Yeah, and some clubs actually do have the technology already installed. Poole had the 2-minute clock. I know Glasgow have got one. Bellevue, I assume, will have one because they've done FIM events. So there are clubs that are already doing it in some form or another, but it's just sort of applied differently, isn't it, here and there? Yeah,
exactly that. But even though we do have it, we still have this rule where, if you're on the way to the start or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, but it just makes no sense. I think you either use it or you don't. And unfortunately, if you've had a crash and you need more time, that's down to the clerk of the course to tell the referee. If the referee's put the 2 minutes straight back on and there's a problem, that's what the clerk of the course is for, to cancel it. But if you're messing around, fiddling with your clutch and you're late for the tapes, that's your fault, and you should be out if it's at 0.
Watch this space. You never know what's going to happen, but it is certainly, I would say, probably a distinct possibility. I would think, if not this season, but certainly in the future. Okay, so that's the rule. It sounds a very fair one. And finally, an opposition for your dream 1 to 7. It's a team of world beaters, but who would be your dream opposition? This would be an actual team that did exist at some point in history.
I laughed earlier, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Ipswich 98 team. Obviously, I don't remember it overly well, but I know a lot about it being at Ipswich for a long time, and the riders that were in the team that year were just unreal, and the records that the team had, the way they did it, and obviously it was the last time that Ipswich had any major honours, so it's hard to go against that sort of team. How they got them boys in that team, I don't know, Ricardson, Gollop, Nichols, Louis, unbelievable. I know Scotty was probably only just starting out back then, but he was already a fantastic rider and obviously gave them the backup they needed if they needed it. I'm pretty sure that's a popular answer, but yeah, it's got to be that team.
Has Chris Louis told you about the what was inside the trophy when it was presented?
Yes, I have heard the story. Yeah, it was a fish, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, Shane Parker put a fish inside it.
Oh, brilliant.
I think maybe Speedway's perhaps lacking that level of banter these days. Shane Parker, I think, obviously he rode for Kings Lynn and Ipswich, didn't he? So he was across both sides of it. But him with hose pipes, fire extinguishers, dead fish, that was very much the winning formula that year.
Yeah, I think the sport's just got a lot more professional over the years, which is a good thing, but I still think we need a bit of the old school in there still involved, because it's characters that make the sport as well. And, we probably do lack a few characters like Shane and people like that these days.
Yeah, although I think Chris Louis is probably not too bothered about having any more dead fish in his office, sat there festering for a few days. But there we go. But you can hear that story on the Chris Louis episode. Go back; he'll tell it. It tells it far better than I do. Brilliant, Danny. That's superb, and I'm sure that would be a great meeting. Lots of people would turn up to see, but we don't have Thomas Golub at Vauxhall, but of course we do have Emil Saifutinov to look forward to alongside yourself and Jason Doyle and the rest of the guys as well with Ipswich. And you're going to be at Redcar, the Echo Arena for the Redcar Bears, a very strong side. And I would always recommend anyone who's never been up to Redcar to watch some Speedway. If you're in the area, definitely make it a trip, because as a Speedway track goes, whether you're sporting a particular team or whether you're just a neutral, it always produces some good racing. So you're never going to be far wrong going to watch a Redcar meeting, of course. And all the best for a good season, Danny. I hope it's a safe one, and interesting to see how things go. I think there's a bit of pressure on Poole to try and get a treble, but you're now with Redcar, and they're desperate for some more silverware. So it's all there to be got.
Yeah, it sure is, Ian. It's a long season, as I say, and we'll take it one step at a time. We're not going to count our chickens or anything like that. First plan is to get to them playoffs, and that'll be the first goal. So looking forward to the season now. Thanks for having me on, mate, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Thanks to Danny King, my guest on this episode of Humans of Speedway, and thanks to you for listening as well. There's plenty other episodes where these came from, the most recent one being Danny's former teammate and the man who's taken over his role as captain at Poole in 2023, Steve Worrell, who was speaking about his testimonial meeting, which of course has been delayed until the summer, but that's the most recent episode before this. We also spoke with Paul Bowen about the prospect of electric speedway. Have a listen to that and find out why it's not all doom and gloom and willows in the noise. There's actually a bigger picture here, which could certainly help Speedway for a long time to come. Listen to that episode to find out more. Also spoke with Justin Sedgman, Dave Rowe from Eurosports, Gary Flint and Leon Flint, the father and son duo, and, the Kings of Berwick, you have to say. Adam Roynan, spoke with him, who's going to be lining up for the Poole Pirates this year as well. Stuart Robson, Neil Vatcher, the Great Britain Under-21 manager, Lewis Kerr, Tom Brennan, Jordan Jenkins, Adam Ellis. There's loads to go at. Have a listen at your leisure. Largely, they're fairly timeless if you've not listened to any of the previous episodes yet, because talking about their careers up to that point, and of course their dream Speedway meetings as well. So there's plenty to keep you occupied, especially on those long journeys to places where you may inevitably end up with a rain-off. But we'll try and keep you entertained on the way. Like and subscribe the podcast to make sure you don't miss any new episodes when they do arrive. Thanks for listening once again. Enjoy your Speedway in the meantime, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Humans of Speedway.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.